Ready on the wall? Okay. I'd like to call the regular council meeting of the City Twinsburg Council to order. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Steele?
Here.
Ms. McFerrin?
Here.
Mr. Bellin?
Here.
Mr. Fury? Mr. Scafidi?
Here.
Mr. Barr?
Here.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Here.
Okay, please rise. Let's join Mrs. Stoffer for the invocation and the pledge of allegiance.
Father, we seek your guidance for the business that is before us. In planning for the future of the city of Twinsburg, give us vision. Guide us to make decisions that are not self-serving, but for the betterment of our community, so we can continue to move in a positive direction. Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Did everybody have a chance to read those? Does anybody have any additions, corrections, anything they'd like to change? Okay. I'd like to make a motion. We approve the minutes from the June 11th, 2019 meeting. Is there a second? Second. Mr. Bellin seconds. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Since I wasn't here, should I vote?
Did you read the
You
minutes?
can.
I read them, but I
There
don't
you
really
go.
wasn't at the meeting.
Okay.
I'm asking a question. I can.
You can vote or approve them as a form, or you can abstain.
I approve them then. I was just double checking.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
I didn't think
And
to
Mr.
ask
Bard.
ahead of time.
Yes.
Okay, minutes are approved. Next, we're on to awards and presentations. Do we have anything?
There are none.
Nothing tonight. Next is audience participation.
Yes, first we have Bruce Baldwin.
Yes, good evening, Council. Bruce Baldwin, 3310 Cannon Road. I believe the house next to the railroad tracks on Route 91, I think the lawn has not been mowed this year. I believe the house abandoned. Does anybody know anything about that? I don't believe there's anybody living in their house. This lawn has not been mowed this year at all.
Which house?
91.
This-
Twinsburg Post Office, number 3, has a car sitting in parking lot. It's been sitting there for a year and a half. Has 3 flat tires. This does not make our city look good at all. To me, this is very deplorable for an abandoned house or a car sitting. It's got 3 flat tires. I know it's been there for a year and a half. I know there's other cars in Twinsburg that I've seen, and I don't go around. I still have a job. I don't drive around looking. It's just not hard to see this. To me, where I worked at, this started abandoned house, and it got worse and worse where I worked. That was one reason I was glad to leave. It just never got any better once it started. So, okay, thank you. Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you.
sir.
Mr. Baldwin?
Next.
The post office, all they got to do to get that car out of there is call the PD, and they'll go tag it for 72
I
hours.
don't understand what it's been there for.
It's on the post office private property. If
Number
they
3,
If they call the police department and ask them to come down, they'll go down and tag it for 72-hour removal, and they'll tow it away.
All right.
But they have to do it.
I think I made myself a little messed up here.
Okay.
Number 3 post office is now the daycare center. That's number 3. I'm sorry, I kind of
Okay.
messed, I'm sorry, I didn't do that on purpose.
Okay, it's still the same thing. They have to call, and they'll,
Oh,
the
they have to,
PD.
even though the car sits there for a year and a half, I mean,
It's different.
they have to call.
Mm-hmm.
What about when it's sitting on private property? There's cars sitting around, I've seen them.
All the owner of the property's got to do is call the PD, and they will
No, I
go.
mean,
and-
the owner of the property is having his own car sit there, you know what I mean?
If it's unlicensed junk motor vehicle, they can do something about it.
Bender, I can show you one that sunk right up to the rims.
No.
There's something,
So wait.
Bring it to the attention of the-
something's amiss here, sir.
bring it
I
to
understand what
the-
you're saying about the 72 hours. I understand that.
Okay.
You're 100% right.
Bring it to the attention of the police department.
But the ones sitting in these driveways without plates, it's gonna get worse and worse. There's front plate coming off next year on July 1st. You're not gonna be able to track some of these.
You're right.
Not even the warrant pickups, you're not gonna track them. Thank you.
Okay.
Next we have Karen Heil.
You can read the next name, too.
And is it Peg Bretz? Breeds.
My name is Karen Heil, and I live at 9856 Burton Drive. I've lived in Twinsburg since 1994. Peg and I are here tonight to talk about one of the fastest growing sports in the world, which is pickleball, and our need for dedicated outdoor pickleball courts in Twinsburg. Just to show you the magnitude of the people who are playing this sport in the U.S., in 2017, pickleball had 3.1 million players. That's a 12% increase from the year before. For over 2 years, I, along with many others, have been playing pickleball on tennis courts at Glen Meadow Park. I've also played at a number of pickleball courts, at dedicated pickleball outdoor courts in Solon, Stowe, Independence, Broadview Heights, and Parma Heights. We would like to invite you to stop by Glen Meadow. We play on Monday and Thursday between 8:30 and 10:30. And
In the morning.
in the morning. No lights. And Wednesday evening between 6 and 8 p.m. So Peg is next, and she'll.
Yeah, just to give you a little bit more background, my address is 2997 Country Club Lane. So we have a group of us in Twinsburg. There's about 40 to 50 of us who are trying to, play on a regular basis. As Karen indicated, our courts that we play at outside at Glen Meadow, they're actually tennis courts that the city was nice enough to line for pickleball, but they're really not dedicated pickleball courts. There's a difference between tennis and pickleball. And for those who are not familiar with pickleball is kind of a cross between tennis and ping pong. And it's a smaller court. It's about a quarter of the size of a tennis court. And as Karen mentioned, it's a really fast-growing sport that a lot of folks are getting involved in. And what I'm seeing is a lot of the residents of Twinsburg who want to play in Twinsburg are not playing in Twinsburg. They're going to places that have dedicated pickleball courts, like Independence Mentor, who recently took out all their tennis courts and replaced them with 15 pickleball courts. So we'd like to keep people in Twinsburg in the parks, because I think we have great parks. And then like on Wednesday nights after pickleball, we all go to a local establishment in Twinsburg to support, that kind of thing, because it's a social organization too. We've met twice with Mayor Yates and Derek, and have kind of brainstormed and talked about some ideas on converting the 2 courts at Glen Meadow into 6 pickleball courts. We've also been to the Friends of Twinsburg Parks meeting last night, met with Debbie Peltz. She was very supportive, and we're trying to partner with them to see if we can do some fundraising, but also get some money from the city to help us do this. We're also going to attend the Parks and Rec Board meeting to kind of give them the heads up that we want to do this, and we're looking to come back hopefully to the next council meeting in a couple weeks to provide you more of a formal presentation on what we'd like to do and see if we can get your support. But we wanted to kind of give you a heads up and get any feedback initially, or if anybody had any questions before we kind of move forward.
Well, I do. I have a question, because I have seen people playing tennis, and I'm not up there all the time to know how often they're used. So what is the problem with having the courts used for both? I know you're saying the pickleball is smaller, but if you can accommodate both tennis and pickleball, why doesn't that work for pickleball?
So the first thing is the nets are shorter in pickleball than tennis. So they're a few inches shorter. The courts are much larger, and there's also multiple lines on the courts, and then you have 2 courts where you're running constantly to get the ball, unless we hit it every time and never miss it, but that happens. And just resurfacing of the courts. It's a more professional kind of atmosphere, and we think that we're going to get more players to come and be part of our group and provide that for the city as a place to play. A lot of us play, when we go out of state on vacation, in many other places. There's a professional organization, that has tournaments and things like that too.
Yeah. So we have met a couple times. I was in Columbus months ago, and I know someone down there who was a big tennis player. He's now playing pickleball. His brother is like the VP of rackets at Head Sports, and it's just exploding down there. So a lot of municipalities down there are just converting tennis courts or either building new. You talk about Mentor converted, I believe, 12 courts, left a couple up, ended up converting the remaining 2. So they're just completely dedicated pickleball courts. They've got a complete website, club, leagues. You know, you look at Western Reserve Racket, which is an indoor facility, probably runs more pickleball leagues now than tennis leagues. So it's a growing sport. I've kind of learned a lot about it the last 6 months. I've received requests for it for the last couple of years from different residents and from all demographics, and you know, not just seniors or, I mean, it's been a lot of people asking for it. And it's interesting. I mean, Derek, I believe, and he'll be able to share some stuff next week. Has been talking to Mentor. Independence just put in a lot of them. So it's one of those things where we have, we invested in the courts. There's 5 courts right next to the outdoor pool that we invested in that provide really the top place for people who want to play tennis is on those courts. And then we've also put a little bit of money into the courts up behind the community center that are up on the park. So there's tennis courts up there. So we have access, 7 tennis courts. So to take these 2 and turn them into 6 dedicated pickleball courts would be, I mean, just, I think a great addition to this club and the way that it's growing. And again, I think another recreational addition to Twinsburg. Because I went up and the first day they called and they had their league going on and they kind of strapped the nets down and pull them down just to try to make it, adapt to what they're doing. But again, I think, those courts aren't in bad shape, so we with minimal effort can probably resurface them, paint them, and we'll be hopefully getting some cost for that just to, have it as an option to look at. And then the Friends of Twinsburg Parks, I recommended they reach out to them. They did. They were excited about it. Looks like they may be doing some fundraising. They have existing funds. It was a limited board, but there's some preliminary approval to help try to move this forward. So next council meeting, hopefully there's a bigger and better presentation to kind of show you what it would look like.
I have a question, because I don't remember if it was this meeting or the Parks and Rec, but some people came in and they wanted handball or something. Remember that?
That was a few years ago. There was a lady that wanted, she wanted a handball court, which is a wall with the space to do that.
That never happened.
No, I don't know. I mean, we had one individual that came in, but I haven't been approached by a league of handball players. So, I mean.
And the other one was the bocce ball request.
Yep.
Yeah.
What about bocce ball?
And when you look at long-term, I think Derek and I were up at the park today. We were measuring and doing some things. When you look long-term, we have, we've got those courts. We have the animals that are there that are really kind of detached from the playground.
Right.
You've got, and we maintain them. There's probably 4 to 6 horseshoe pins that I don't believe ever get used. I mean, that particular space, if we could relocate the animals closer to the playground, could have a pavilion area with bocce ball courts, horseshoe, pickleball. It'd be a nice little recreation complex for that over there. Now that's long-term
I could support
kind of
that.
projects and those kind of things, but that is, when you look at that land, it's kind of detached from the ball fields and what we have going on over there. It would be a nice little complex for that type of I guess, more mature sports, when you're looking at pickleball and if you leave horseshoes and you have a bocce ball, but if you had a little pavilion that the people could meet and gather in, I think it would be a great addition to our parks. But that was just something we were thinking about today as we looked at the property over there.
I was just talking about pickleball today with someone. I said, I think we need to get some pickleball courts.
Yeah.
So
And we'd be happy
Yes.
if anybody wants to come, like we said, when we play, especially since you probably all work during the day, but on Wednesday nights, we usually have a pretty good group of anywhere between 16 to 20 of us. And we brought in new people, and I'm always out recruiting. My neighbors came last week and they watched, they weren't real sure. And we've held a couple clinics where if we have new players and they don't know what it is, they don't know how to score, they don't, we've taught them. And so we're just trying to grow it in Twinsburg like it's grown in a lot of the other communities around. So I think the Twinsburg parks are great. I haven't lived in Twinsburg that long, but I use them all and I think it's great. I think it would be a great addition.
Is there a variation of it that you would do at the fitness center during the winter, or you just stop playing?
No, we have a room at the the community center or the senior center that is lined for us to do one court. We've been talking with the mayor and Derek about some options for an indoor space also, either utilizing the rec center or maybe one of the schools or even St. Cosmas and Damien, or where there's gyms where we could maybe line. It's pretty easy to line them, and there's actually portable nets that you can buy relatively inexpensive. So if you're in a place like that where they're going to use it for other things, you got to take the net down and that, but it's really not a big deal to do that.
Yeah, we discussed that. It's kind of a timing issue at the fitness center because of the use of the fitness center, and also taking a look at lining, because it's hard to temporary line, it's hard to do those kind of things. And so right now we have it lined for basketball, volleyball, tennis. So we had another set of lines, how that would all mix together and look.
It can get confusing,
Yeah.
especially to people my age.
I know Solon does that, and they said they play in Solon, and sometimes it's a little confusing
Yeah.
because of all the lines
Right.
that are on the court.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. I'll
Thank you very much.
be
Yeah.
there. I'll be
All
there to
right,
see-
come on
yeah.
over.
Yeah.
You'll
love it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Pickleball is going great guns
Yeah,
down on
I'm
Hilton
anxious to
Head.
go.
I
check it out.
It's amazing the people that are playing pickleball.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yes, next we have Sheila Williams.
I wanted to tell you, good evening, the Summit County Public Health, we were recertified for another 5-year period as a National Public Health Accreditation Center. I brought the letter, I downloaded it, I'll give it to Shannon. We were the first in the state of Ohio to do it, and then you have to go through the recertification process, so we just got recertified. So I wanted to make sure I made you all aware. And it's a big deal, because I think there's only maybe three other counties in the whole state that have gone through the process for us. And then I wanted to ask a question. There is a huge hole with 91's program, the hole I can live with. My concern is there's a tree next to the hole, a large pine tree. And I want to know if maybe somebody at the service department at some point could look at it to maybe eventually take it down, because the way it's been disrupted.
Is it behind your property?
No, it's on the Ethan's 91 side, on the other side by Marlene and the big hole that's there. It's a pine tree, and it has to be 20, 25 years old, but you can see where it's already stressed. And then the state made a huge hole for whatever they're doing there. And the hole I have to live with. My concern is when they finish, the back is already jacked up, and now this tree could easily fall, because I do have some trees that have come down. And that's all I wanted. And I want to know, what are we going to do about this fox that's roaming around? He's floating around my neighborhood looking pretty bad. He's a reddish-brown fox. Nobody else has seen him. Have you seen him?
I've seen him.
Yeah. He looks like he may be sick. And one of my neighbors took a picture of him, so I know that we don't have an animal warden anymore, because that was my other question. I have a raccoon about this big. She must be about this high. And she's floating in and around the neighborhood.
Mayor, we still have animal control, don't we?
They only come out once.
We have animal
Yeah.
control.
So do I still call here to City Hall about a raccoon trap?
Yeah, send me an email, and I'll get it to Service Department. Service Department's kind of taking that over.
Okay.
We don't have a dedicated animal warden, we kind of just have Service Department's taking that responsibility over, so, but I'll see who, I know we contract sometimes out.
Yeah,
with
'cause
some
last year I had
large
Rocky and his
traffic
mama.
those kind of things, so,
Yeah.
but-
Got Rocky, didn't get the mama.
Didn't get mama.
No, the mama took all the food out the back of the cage. Rocky got caught the first night.
Yeah.
But she is huge,
Okay.
and
Send me an email, and I'll get the point in the right direction.
okay, thank you. And that's all I wanted.
Congratulations on your accreditation. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that is all.
Okay. Next, we're on to council communication and committee reports. Mr. Bell.
Thank you. Good evening. The Architectural Review Board met on Thursday, June 20th. There were 3 cases on the agenda that evening. Case 190656 was a warehouse addition for Sifron, located at 8181 Darrow Road, which was approved as submitted.
Case 190657 was a detached garage at 1917 Hillsdale Drive, which was approved as submitted. Case 190658 was a new single-family home in Quarry Reserve, Boulderbrook at 3078 Wyatt's Way, which was approved as noted. We had a working session about the discussion of aluminum-framed attached patio and decking roofs. The July 4th meeting was moved to Tuesday, July 2nd, 6 p.m. right here in council chambers. The next Golf Advisory Board meeting will be held on Tuesday, July 16th at 6:30 p.m. here in council chambers. That concludes my report for this evening. Thank you.
Mr. Scafidi.
Thank you. Good evening. The Board of Zoning Appeals met on June 12th. They had two appeals before them that evening. Appeal number 4 was a proposed 12 by 20 deck, which was being constructed 43 feet from the rear property line. However, the resident is looking for a 7-foot rear setback variance was being requested. Appeal number 5 was a proposed 28 by 20 addition constructed 7.5 feet from the side rear property line, and they were looking for specifically a 2.5-foot rear setback variance. Both appeals were heard by the board, and both were passed by a 5-0 vote. And that was the end of the Board of Zoning Appeals. They do not have another meeting scheduled as of yet, but as soon as they do, I'll make that announcement and I'll let you know. And that's the end of my report tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Barr.
Good evening. Thank you very much. I will defer to Mrs. Stauffer, who attended the Planning Commission in my absence on June 17th, for the report on that. I will note that the next Planning Commission meeting is going to be this coming Monday, July 1st, here in Council Chambers at 7 p.m. The next Environmental Commission meeting will be September 3rd, right after the Labor Day holiday, here in Council Chambers at 7 p.m. And just want to remind everybody, if they haven't done so, to get their tickets for the Cleveland Pops Rock the Park concert, which is July 3rd. That's my favorite Rock the Park event of the year. It's just terrific for the whole family. There's fireworks afterwards, and you know, it's a great way to spend the evening before the holiday here in Twinsburg. That is all I have this evening. I do have a couple of motions, but I will let Mrs. Stauffer give the report from Planning Commission, and then I can bring those up in new business. Or you want me to do that now, Mr. Administrator?
You usually do them at the end, however you want to do it.
Yeah, I'll do it at the end, if you...
Well, I was just going to do the motions for the planning commissions, but I'll wait. You go ahead and do that at the end.
Huh?
I did attend the planning commission meeting, and there were a couple of motions that Mr. Barr will make. I do, the Twin State Committee met, and I did get a couple of items that they would like for me to share with you. They wanted to talk about the golf outing that is scheduled for Friday, August 2nd, at 9 a.m. start. 2-person team, 2-person scramble, 4 divisions, $210 per 2-person team. All the money goes to, or the proceeds this year from the golf outing are going to the Humane Society. Please take a look at the Twinsday webpage. You can get the latest updates. Twinsday.org is where you can find that. I also attend Howering Local Leadership Conference in D.C. on June 20th and 21st. It was just a very enlightening. We were, had a lot of great speakers, got a lot of great contact information that I'm going to be sharing with council, different numbers of people that it was really a wonderful conference of different representatives who were able to, offer a lot of great insights. One thing I found was that a lot of the representatives spoke highly of our representatives in the state of Ohio and really talked a lot about how much support we have there at that level. Some of the people that we had a chance to listen to or talk with, Congressman Anthony Gonzalez from the 16th District, Marcia Fudge, David Joyce, obviously, Marcy Kaptur of the 9th District, who is the longest serving female in Congress right now. So that was the longest ever, to be clear on that. We also listened to the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, Scott Turner, the Executive Director, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, and then Sean McCloskey, Andrew Sawyers, Director of the Office of Wastewater Management. I really think it was a great conference, and I think it would be so beneficial for everyone to go. It was really a wonderful conference. That's all I have.
Ms. McPherson?
Okay. Well, Parks and Rec meeting is going to be this Thursday here at 6:30. I did want to mention that PAN is June 29th and 30th. That's a Twinsburg Community Theater performance at 2 p.m. at the middle school. Community Relations Committee met on Thursday. That committee is made up of representatives from the township, the village, the school, the library, the chamber. And a lot of our conversation was about the school and library plan, and I'll have some other updates on that meeting at our next meeting. That's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Scafidi?
Yes, thank you. Back to the Board of Zoning Appeals. I would like to, at this time, make a motion that we waive the 30-day wait on appeal number 4 and appeal number 5. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Steele, second. Anybody have any discussion? Shannon, would you call the roll?
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Thank you. And that's all I have. Thanks. Okay, so
I guess I'll make my motions at this time as well.
Go
Mr.
right ahead.
Steele. So I have two motions this evening. The first is that City Council approves the site plan for Sifron located at 8181 Darrow Road. The plan is for a building addition, which was approved by the Planning Commission at their June 17th meeting. Is there a second?
A second.
Mr. Bellin seconds. Shannon, would you call the roll, please? Is there any discussion? No discussion? Shannon, would you kindly call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes?
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Wonderful. Passes unanimously. The second motion, that City Council approves the site plan for Vistar located at 8745 Chamberlain Road. The plan is for a building addition, which was approved by the Planning Commission at their June 17th meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on that? Hearing none. Shannon, if you would call the roll, please.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
And again, that motion passes unanimously. That is all I have for this evening, Mr. Steele. Thank you.
Anything else? We're good. Okay. I remembered. Mayor, you're up.
Good evening, everyone. Quick report. Just a couple things happening. Chamberlain Road project is complete, so if you've driven on there, it's been a great project to get done. The condition of that road's been working with for a number of years, so and it went fairly smooth, so it's a good thing. Rock the Park, Cleveland Pops. This Friday, we actually have our first metal night, so it's a new genre for us. We have Metallica and Motley Crue cover bands, which should be interesting. I hope to go. I did also go to the Empowering Local Leadership conference that was in D.C., and you know, it's a great conference to attend. I mean, we have just great delegates here in Ohio that really fight for our local communities, fight for our state. And Dave Joyce, we've got U.S. Representative Anthony Gonzalez, Congresswoman Marcia Fudge, and then Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur. And so we were able to hear from all of them, and then Ms. Stoffer shared some of the speakers, and then some of the programs that really don't get much recognition. Scott Turner was just a really dynamic speaker, director of the White House Opportunity Revitalization Council, which is basically trying to push money into inner city, more impoverished areas, just to revitalize those particular areas in a lot of different ways. And it was great just hearing him speak on just a completely nonpartisan level about money that is being pumped into our major communities around the nation. And while we kind of live in our little bubble here, we are impacted by what goes on in Akron and Cleveland. So trying to keep our eyes on what's happening, and, you know, what's going on in Cleveland and what's going on in Akron really affects Twinsburg, because a lot of the people that live here work in those communities. And so, you know, it's a great conference, and it was just had a really good series of speakers. This time, they've always had good speakers, but I really enjoyed, I think, you know, the White House briefing. They bring in a lot of individuals, and you know, one of the fun things I did get to do this time was also take a tour of the Capitol Dome. So I got to go to the top of the dome through the winding staircase, which is it's hard to get a tour, and I got a call to be able to do that. Try to get you in, but I couldn't. But yeah, they only take like 6 or 7 people at a time. But you know, but it's just a neat experience. I would never want to live in DC. I'll just make that on the record. But it's a crazy community with stuff going on all the time. But it's nice to be able to go there and kind of look and see ways that we can connect better at the federal level, you know, from us here locally. So, and then let's see here. So I think that's about all I have for this evening. We do have one report. So Clay, want to come up?
Good evening, everyone. Civil Service Commission met on June 20th. Joe Jasseny was sworn in as a new commissioner, and Leonard Taylor was elected chairman for the commission. They certified the fire captain's exam. There were 11 candidates who took that initial written test, and then 6 of those candidates, the top 6, moved on to the assessment center that they had here. So those 6 candidates were certified by the commission. Also, the commission approved that there be a dispatch entrance test September 9th, so we'll be advertising for that before too much longer. And then HR-wise, just wanted to update you on our current employees. We have 182 full-time, 174 part-time, which is, I think, an all-time record. I'm sure it is. And the seasonals are at 128. That's 484 total employees. I also met with our Bureau of Workers Comp representative, Lori Goodnight. She came out here and met with me. We kind of reviewed, you know, we're in a group for workers' comp, a top-rated group, so we pay our premium through this group, and we get some discounts. But we did take a look at if the city were to have an individual policy with the Bureau, would we do better? So we just kind of looked at that comparison, and we did realize that we are doing better by staying in the group. So, but it was kind of nice to take a look at that every now and then. I also attended a Bureau of Workers' Comp safety training session in Independence last week. And lastly, in HR, we're still looking for part-time cooks out at the restaurant. IT-wise, the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System, IPAWS, which is run by FEMA, we have passed phase 1 in the approval process, and then phase 2 will be some training and education for the admins that will be running the service, and then phase 3 would be the final approval. And then that's the software that, as Mark has explained previously, that will allow us to send text messages to anybody that has a cell phone anywhere in the city or in the area. Not just people who sign up for the service, but if there's certain qualifying emergencies, everybody will get a message. And then also IT-wise, they're going to be they're going to be updating the finance software solutions to handle our utility billing, and they've handled over 90 help desk requests so far for June, and that's official help desk requests, not when they just stop everybody in the stop Mark or Don or them in the hall and say, hey, I got this problem, come on over here. It's only when the documented ones are 90 plus, so they're doing a good job too, staying busy. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Sarah?
Good evening, Council. I have good news tonight about our income tax receipts. We're up over last year, so that's the first time in a couple months we're up. We're up 0.88% over last year. We're sitting at 12.4 million, where we were at 12.3 million at this time last year. And also, we're going to get a refund from RETA in the amount of $415,000 on Friday. So our cost of collections came in at 1.16%. We can't do any better than that. well, I shouldn't say that because maybe they can, but they're doing a great job for us. So that's all I have.
Great.
Thank you.
So just kind of working off of finance, one thing I did want to mention, so if you've been following the state budget that's been presented, I know June 30th is the deadline, they have to vote on it. There's a lot of different things that are in that budget, but they're looking at, Governor DeWine's looking at increasing a little bit the local government share, which if you've followed it all, 2010 we were at $640,000. 2017 we were down to 228, so we've lost about $430,000 over the last 5 or 6 years from our local government fund. That's just one of those examples of, as we're fighting our budget challenges, when we look at healthcare going up, 1.2 million not really offering any benefit. Some of our local government funding going down $400,000. That's 1.6, almost going on $2 million there that we're fighting with. So hopefully we're going to see a little bit more. The gas tax, that's going to be another injection of money that's more than what we've received in the past. But I just wanted to share that because a lot of times stuff like that floats through our budget, both revenue and expense side, we look at, but we don't really monitor. So it's one of those things where we've kind of kept our eye on it. But I wanted to point out the fact that hopefully we're going to start heading in a better direction than losing hundreds of thousands of dollars every year from the state side. So, and that's all I have.
Okay. Question for him. Yeah, go ahead. Sam has a question.
Mayor, I had a question for you under your report. You mentioned Chamberlain Road and how it was repaved. Whose responsibility is that median strip in there? The grass is not cut. It looks terrible. A lot of it needs to be filled in and possibly replanted. We've got a beautiful industrial park there going. And, we're trying to attract new businesses to the spec building and so on and so forth. And I just think that, that would truly enhance the area and make it more attractive to anybody. As we all know, the front of on 82 looks really nice with the new buildings there and the landscape they've done. And I just think that with all that new pavement now, it looks really nice there. But then you drive down there and that medium, it looks terrible. It's
I'll double check and see if there's any follow-up that the contractors were required to do. And then I know my off the cuff answer would be probably half of it is our responsibility and half of it is the county.
Could we do our half and then let them worry about their half?
But it'd be nice if it all looked good.
Yeah, it would be nice. I think even if they cut the grass, it's a mess. So that's all. I just had that question.
Okay. Next, we're on to legislation. First on the list is ordinance 51, 2019.
An ordinance accepting the bid of Spano Brothers Construction Company Incorporated for the 2019 citywide sidewalk program and declaring an emergency.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to declare ordinance 51, 2019 an emergency. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. McFerrin seconds. The reason we want to do this is I'm assuming Amy wants to get it out and get it started as quickly as possible before it rains again. Okay. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes. Okay, ordinance 51 passes 6-0.
Mr.
Or
That's just the emergency.
The emergency passes 6-0, excuse me. Now I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 51, 2019. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Barr seconds. Any other discussion? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Okay, the ordinance 51, 2019 passes 6-0. Next is ordinance 53, 2019.
An ordinance approving the recodification, editing, and inclusion of certain ordinances as part of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of Twinsburg, Ohio.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 53, 2019. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Scafidi seconds. Any discussion? This is just to put the new, what we've passed into the
Yeah,
ordinance.
we do this every year.
It's every year.
Yeah, every year. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 53, 2019 passes 6-0. Next is ordinance 55, 2019.
An ordinance creating Section 909 of the codified ordinances of the City of Twinsburg regulating small cell technology in the right-of-way.
Okay. And that is,
We're voting tonight.
okay. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 55, 2019. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Stoffer seconds. Any discussion? This is all about those small cell.
It was all small cell, so, yeah, so I know, building department spend a lot of time planning, researching, different ways that we can, as much as possible, try to regulate, the look and location of small cell towers in our community, and this is, some ordinance we drafted that we think, we can enforce.
Okay, Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 55, 2019 passes 6-0. Next is ordinance 56, 2019.
An ordinance creating Section 910 of the codified ordinances of the City of Twinsburg regarding small cell design guidelines.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 56, 2019. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Barr seconds. Any discussion?
This is basically just what the mayor stated as far as the design guidelines. It's just important to note that the state of Ohio basically tied local cities and municipalities back on what we can and cannot regulate as it pertains to this. So to expand on what the mayor was saying, basically, we've done our due diligence and our homework to try and make sure that these are as inoffensive as legally possible, if that's a term.
Okay, Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Ordinance 56, 2019 passes 6-0. Next is ordinance 57, 2019.
An ordinance rezoning certain property, parcel 64-05379 in Twinsburg, Ohio, owned by the City of Twinsburg from PUD and public facilities to R5 Single Family Cluster District use.
Next is ordinance 58, 2019.
An ordinance rezoning certain property, parcel 64-08056 in Twinsburg, Ohio, owned by the City of Twinsburg from C1 commercial use to R5 Single Family Cluster District use.
Next is ordinance 59, 2019.
An ordinance adopting the tax budget for the City of Twinsburg, Ohio for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2020, and submitting the same to the county auditor.
Okay, next we move on to unfinished business, new business, and miscellaneous. I have two things. First, we're going to have a public hearing on July the 9th regarding the rezoning issues up at 91 in Glenwood. The second is our council summer break will start on July the 10th and run through the 8/26. The first meeting back on Tuesday, August the 27th. Anything else?
I would just like to wish everybody a happy and healthy 4th of July.
4th of July.
Because we will not see you folks until after Independence Day.
I have one thing, right?
I do have a few things. One, I'd like to thank the school district for coming in to share that district facilities assessment and conceptual ideas. The plan they put together, I know that was really, a lot of work was put into that, so I appreciate them sharing that with us. I also wanted to say one more thing about this conference that we attended, and I guess one thing I took away from it was we talk a lot about Republican and Democrats, and there's a lot of tension we see, but going to this conference, our representatives are working together. and I felt very comfortable watching their talk. They're on committees and commissions together, and they were, with a lot of them, they were talking just about how, we see a lot of that in the media, but our representatives are working hand in hand, and I thought that was very refreshing, and I felt very comfortable. And then, let's see, one other thing I had, the school district, I did want to possibly set up a safety committee meeting, because I know there's been some talk about the street parking lately, and I just wanted to make sure I get that noted. Mayor, is that a safety issue, the way we have it, or is it?
Street parking, yeah, is set up as a safety issue. I mean, why that is enforced, but I know we had.
A brief conversation. I thought maybe we could try to get a committee together and just a meeting.
Well, I believe we're supposed to have one in 2 weeks.
Oh, and that was
or public works, so we can kind of play around with them as far as which one we have, but we can get one in.
Okay, thank you. And, well, my last item is that I will not be here at the next meeting. I have a wedding out of town to attend.
On a Tuesday?
On a Tuesday, yes. I got to get there.
I know, I'm just teasing.
So that is all I have.
Other than wishing everyone a happy and safe 4th of July, and again, thanking the school district for their very thorough presentation. That's all I have.
Mr. Bellin.
Yeah, the Twinsburg Historical Society will hold a barn sale fundraiser in the Freeman Melparch Barn on Friday, July 12th and Saturday, July 13th. All proceeds will be used to restore the Moses Roach House, formerly known as the Chamber House. For additional details, you can go to twinsburghistoricalsociety.org. Happy and safe 4th of July. Nothing further. Thank you.
Mr. Scafidi.
I have one thing. I just want to wish our colleague and my friend Scott Barr a happy birthday tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday.
I hope you have a great day, Scott.
Thank you, sir.
Have a nice birthday.
Did you bring cupcakes?
Pardon me?
Did you bring the cupcakes?
I thought you were making them. And then I'd like to wish everybody happy 4th as well. Be safe. Thank you.
I can't tell if he's blushing or he got burned on his vacation.
Yeah, a little both, probably a little both.
I would like to wish everybody a happy and safe 4th of July. Not only at home, on the road, if you're traveling, just have a safe time. Next on the agenda is to excuse absent members. Oh, I'm sorry. Gotta look to the right.
We'll figure it out some way. So I just wanted to bring up just one thing. I received a summary from the Twins Day Festival regarding, Kent State actually came in last year, their business school, and did an impact study on Twins Days and the city of Twinsburg. And it was just some interesting data. I'm just going to share a couple of facts. That they've estimated between 20 and 30,000 people actually come to the event and participate. And that the local impact financially is about 5.4 million of what, how it impacts Twinsburg as a city. So, an interesting summary. I may talk to them and try to get a little more information, but just wanted to share that. And then that's all I have. And then it's a great day tomorrow. It's also my 26th wedding anniversary. So,
Happy anniversary.
Yeah. But, my wife would never watch this to know I said that, but
We'll vouch for you. No problem. Okay, next is to excuse absent members. To make a motion, we excuse Mr. Ferry for his absence tonight.
I'll second. No,
Mr.
no. Out, whatever. Your pick.
Want a coin? Mr. Scafidi seconds. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Okay. Next on the agenda, we are, I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss matters pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 12122G13, personnel. We will reconvene and report on the executive session.
Second?
Is there a
Second.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.